Okay, welcome to Lesson 7 of our series on reading and writing engineering research articles. In this, we'll be looking at citations of past work and how those are used to support your present work. This is the beginning of Part 3 of the course, where we'll be looking at how you support the claims that we looked at in Part 2. In the first part of this lesson, we'll be looking at particular citations. In the second part, we'll be looking at other ways that past research can be used without specific citations to support your present work. This is based on Chapter 7, Sections 1 and 2 of the textbook. The others will be more useful to you later as you're actually doing your own writing, so I encourage you to go back and look at those then. Now, first we need to be clear about the difference between citations and references. Citations are marks in the body of the text that direct readers to the reference, that section at the end that lists all the information on the source. So citations normally come in two basic formats. The first is most common in science, where they give the author's name and the date in parentheses. The second, more common in engineering, uses some sort of numerical citation, where they're numbered sequentially through the document. The references, again, have many different formats, but all of them show the author, the title, the publication, and again, those are listed at the end of the document. Details on this are found in Chapter 25. Again, you can look at those on your own. But how do you use past research for support? Maybe you've seen the citations and you wonder, how did the author choose where to put them in the document? Why did they choose those citations? Well, you have to remember that each one is used to support certain component claims. So first, again, as I say, in this first part of the lesson, we'll look at the specific citations, the numbered or named citations. These are easy to recognize and used to support many different components throughout the article. So, which ones? Well, let's think about that for a minute before we actually look for them. Would you need citations to support the importance, to show that others think that this kind of research is important? Well, yeah, that makes sense. Others have done similar work, they've said that it's important, and therefore you can cite their work in support of that claim. What about need? To show what has been done and what has not been done. Well, obviously, that would require citations to show the research gap in the previous research. What about the research goal? What you're going to do in this own article? Well, no, probably not, because that's the goal of the present work, not past work, unless it extends the work of something that was done before. What about framework? Framework talks about the background information, the foundation. This depends somewhat on how well known that model is. If it's very well known, you may not need citations. If it's only one or two works that have used it, then probably it will require citations. Reference details, similarly. How close is this to other work? How well known is that other work? That depends on, or that determines whether you need particular citations there. Same with testing methods. How well known are the tools, the testing methods? How commonly used are they in the field? Then what about the testing section, the data patterns, the data from the current work? Well, probably not, unless it also, that in that same table, lists data from a previous work. In that case, it would require a citation. Otherwise, it's your research. Comparisons would require a citation because you have to say where you got that comparison, what you're comparing with. Similarly, interpretations normally support or challenge other previous work, so you have to cite that. And the conclusion, well, that's your own contribution, and so you don't need a citation for the contribution of your present work. That's what we would expect, and indeed we find that. this is a generalized list of the types of citations and where they tend to be found in association with which components. And you see that a lot of them are in the introduction, either associated with importance or need. Importance is more common in science, need is more common in engineering, and I explain that again in more detail in the textbook. Similarly, comparisons are more important in engineering, but interpretations more important in science. But generally, those are the places where you tend to find citations, along with the framework. But it's not always the case, as we'll see as we look at the exemplar articles that my students have chosen.
Hi, let's look at the citations per component table of chemical engineering articles. As we can see in the table that the importance, need, research goal, and framework are all in the introduction division. So that means that most of the citations are in the introduction division. And then we don't have any citations in method division and only one citations in results and discussion division. And the unusual part is that there are 7 citations in the conclusion part. So we should discuss it later.
Okay, now we'll look and see where the components are in the articles and try to figure out exactly why.
Okay, so this is the chemical engineering articles, and there are 2 paragraphs. So let's see the first paragraph, that they put 2 citations in the importance, and then the other citations in the first paragraph are the needs.
Okay. So those are all talking about what has been done before and therefore what still needs to be done.
Yes, because there are problems, and many people do many experiments, so they put many citations in here. And then the second paragraph here, and we can see that they have research goal and framework. So they introduce the framework, but also by the citations here. And after introduce it, and they propose their research goal.
Okay, so in this case, the research goal is very clearly built on that framework because it talks about the FGMs, and then it talks about how they're going to use that in their own work.
Yes, they explain the advantage, so they wanted to apply this advantage. So they will apply in the method division.
Okay. Now, in the methods division, there are no citations. Why not?
Yes, because in the method division, they base on the framework. But the framework is introduced from other field, so they use their own way. So there's no past research for this method.
Okay, so this is something that they developed, this particular method of doing it based on the framework, but there's nothing to refer to.
Yes, because it's only a concept.
Okay.
So let's look at the other citation in the result and discussion. There's only one, because they are comparing the result to the previous result. So they would like to the readers to find the result of themselves. So they put the citations here. And then let's look at the last part, which is the conclusion. This is the most unusual part in this article. And we can see that there are 7 citations here, and the first 3 citations, they said that they want to apply, like maybe fabricate using more sophisticated techniques. So the citations, the techniques that they would like to apply their concepts. And the last citations here, that they also bring some novel techniques here, that they also tackle this problem in the other novel way, not the traditional way that we mentioned in the introduction division.
Right. So here it says that this is the last part of the conclusion, that it's talking about further research or other things that can be done. And so it's saying we can apply things from other research, combine them together, and get something even better.
Yes. They say that they make a small step, but if they gather the small step, and it will be a big step of this topic.
Right. So that's why in this article it has some in the conclusion where you wouldn't normally expect it, because it's saying we can take other things and combine them and make something even better.
Yes.
Yeah.
This table summarizes the number of citations in each component for my mechanical engineering articles, and as we expect, there are a few citations in importance and framework, and no citation in testing divisions and conclusion division. However, we have a lot of the citations, around 30-somethings, 31 citation in the need, and of our expectation that we have a few citations in research goal and research detail.
Okay, let's see where we find the citations in our mechanical engineering article.
Okay, let me speak first in the important part. They have 3 citations in here, and then most of the citation is included in the needs, because the author try to tell the story why this kind of problem is happen and how many people try to accomplish this problem, and they still have some limitations or research gap here. Okay, so this is the reasons why we have a lot of citation here. So because of many researchers have done this.
Yeah, right.
And the other one is very unusual in the research goal, because we have the 3 citation here, and the reason is in the author own proposed method, they try to use the past research and combine together and propose the new one as a combination of the past research.
Okay, so they're taking these 3 previous ideas and they're combining them, extending them, building on them. So they have to put them there as part of the research goal.
Yeah. And okay, go to the frameworks. This one, they try to formulate the problems as a NWMR system. So they use the reference 35 to refer this problem. Yeah, this is the usual. But the unusual one is this part is a research detail. But some they refer to the citations, because inside his own proposed method, they also adopt some technique or some method in the past.
Right, they take that mathematical technique, the backstepping method, and they apply it. So that's really framework, even though it's built into or part of the research detail section. They're saying that we're building on this framework, we're using it in our work.
Okay, and for the other division or other section is no citation there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Okay, good.
This is the table to summarize the number of citations for each component on electrical engineering article, and as you can see, we have total 10 components, and we almost have the citation in the introduction division, but as you can see in the table, the research detail also have more citation.
Now we'll look for the citations in our electrical engineering article.
And this is the electrical engineering article. As we mentioned, they don't have the important components, so we don't look at that. And the citation is almost focused on the framework. So, for example, as you can see here, they will build on the fall in the floor. And another here is almost the past work. And special thing in this paper, they mention citation in their research detail. Yeah. So we can look at this in here in the subsection of floor.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah. And they say that because the admit in this paper, so the space limit, they citation in their thesis.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is this is the thesis of the first author.
Yeah.
So it's basically the same work or continuation of the same work. So they're saying that the details of this can be found in the dissertation, but they don't list it there because of space.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And also they cite another their conference paper. Here we can look at this. So.
Okay. So here again in the research details, they have several citations, but it's to their own work. It's not to other work. So it's again a little bit different than the typical situation.
Yes. And for the citation of the methods, so they use another methods, robot insist, so they can cite in the methods component.
Okay, so that's the testing methods.
Yeah, testing methods.
Right.
And also the comparison, so they compare with they run on another test case in 11.
Okay.
So they also mentioned that.
So that's the comparison with 5 cases that were shown before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
okay.
That's it.
So in summary, if we put all these in one table, you can see that there are differences between the articles. Differences, number one, in the total number of citations. Many articles in engineering have 40 or 50 citations, but some have far less and some have far more. Also, you find that most of them are in the introduction, many of them associated with need and sometimes with framework. Framework, again, may be in the introduction, in the article that we have in chemical engineering, or it may be in the beginning of the process division in the electrical engineering and mechanical engineering. And sometimes we had citations in the research details of things that really referred to past work that was incorporated. That's sort of, it's in the section on research details, but it's really something that's being borrowed from past work. So that also is related to the framework. But again, remember that your article may be different, and articles in your field may have a different pattern. So it's important to look at your articles, not just this general pattern, in order to determine what's expected in your field.